As a token of our appreciation and love, I'd kindly request our director to felicitate our guest speaker, architect Shirish Beri.
Hello, can you hear me at the back? Good evening. Happy to be here after almost 1 year in Ahmedabad. Actually, Ahmedabad was like my second home when I was studying at SEF. But in between, for many years, I could not come because of the work there and all that. And it's good to see that that time there was only one school in Ahmedabad, and actually that remained so for many, many years. But I'm glad to see some new schools with new thinking processes and new ideas are being set up. So I thank Utpal Sharma and NIRMA Institute for calling me here. And also, actually, I don't know whether they are here, Anand University professors, and they were also in touch with me, and they said that we'll have a joint program here today. For me, it is almost impossible to separate architecture from this wonderful fullness, richness, and interconnected complexity of life. Both seem to be the reflections of each other. Since my college days, I have always indulged in frequent, regular breaks and pauses during my life to understand myself and my work, role, and position in this fascinating web of life. And in those silent pauses, so many answers were revealed and so many new questions were born. This has been going on till today. All along, I have attempted to bridge this longest journey in my life. So I have traveled to many, many countries, but still, for me, even today, the longest journey in my life is that between my head to my heart. And I'm still negotiating with it. And at this point, I also remember and I realized the full meaning of what Samuel Mockbee said. It's very beautiful. You'll have to listen to it very carefully. He said that as architects, our goodness is more important than our greatness. Our goodness is more important than our greatness, and our compassion more eventful than our passion. And I find this most relevant in today's noisy, fractured, artificial, and consumeristic environment. Media, they say, is many a times the reflection of our society. I normally don't read newspapers very much, but I happened to glance through this newspaper last year when I was invited to Bombay, Mumbai for the Kalagoda festival. This newspaper arrived in my hotel room, and I looked at it, and just one day's newspaper, just see the kind of stories that are there. no water for 4 years. Delhi 18-year-old confronts harassers. 80% of Bohra women subjected to genital mutilations. See, Ravi Pujari is a mafia guy. Ravi Pujari man arrested for flirting in restaurant, fighting in restaurant. And so, if just one day's newspaper has so much, UP school teacher strips, parades girls on campus. Army due for 6 lakhs. So, truck mows down 2 kids. Ground zero of riot. Fake FB post on boys kidnap and murder goes viral. Worries cops. This is the society that we are living in. And then, this is one day's paper, 7th February last year. OP's India, UK's cabbie check stirs racism now. And then we have these advertisements, consume me, eat me, buy me. So all over the world today, so many relevant area-specific contexts tend to get lost and usurped in the one powerful universal context of commercial returns. Is this what we want? Which has also become the major governing force in our architecture. We live in an environment where our sole purpose seems to be gratification through voracious consumption. And to achieve that, we resort to manipulation, theft, corruption, and violence. No, 2 flyovers are not enough, third one, then the fourth one, then the fifth one. The pseudo-green movement happening, just work out the cost of these buildings, that if they were to be built, the exploitation in nature, bringing us to this stage where one has to travel kilometers to get a bowl of water. Traffic congestion, noise, the pollution, and the negligence of services, garbage, oil spills, inequity in the society. Like we have here we have about 17 floors, specially kept for the parking of the cars. 17 floors almost right from below for cars. And look at the way people live. Again, inequity in the way people live. Inequity in the way people travel. Like this Arab booked an entire jet to transport his falcons from one place to the other. So entire jet is filled with these falcons, these birds. And whereas people have to travel, can't afford a second class ticket, so have to travel between 2 compartments like this. Very dangerous. Inequity in terms of water. And when there is so much inequity, so much greed and restlessness, this creates wars between nations, between ethnic groups. This is how most of Syria looks like today. There's a very beautiful quotation by Howard Zinn. This is after the Hiroshima bombing. This is the Japanese landscape after the atomic bomb was thrown here. There is no flag large enough to cover the shame of killing innocent people. And we are so much, intoxicated with our flags and everywhere flags. I even see that at NASA. At NASA also nowadays is very different. I used to be called to NASA. I've been going to NASA for many years now. And now every college has this flag and they would start shouting and dancing around it. So thus, in a society that is suffering from the fatigued degeneration of its conscience, where our single-minded pursuit of money is impoverishing our mind, shriveling our imagination, and desiccating our heart, don't you think that we need an architecture of goodness for a better society, or for a better life in a better society? So then I asked myself, what can constitute this architecture of goodness? And this is my SEP days. And I used to sleep on this board also. My toothbrush used to be here. I'm sitting on top and drawing. That's the SEP new building. This is my class. And no, why I'm showing you this is that during this time, in third year, I was feeling very restless. And I didn't know what I was doing and what architecture would be in my life, what role it would play, and how it would touch my life or other people's lives through my work. And so I told my parents that I want to take a drop from architecture for 1 year. My parents were a little shocked. They said, you're doing so well, you're getting good grades. Why do you want to do that? I said, this is why I want to do it. But then we compromised on vacations. So every vacation I would come home, do some perspectives for for the office, get some money. And with that money I used to travel around alone for about a month. And that was a time of my unlearning as well as learning. Because I used to travel on a shoestring budget of almost 10-15 rupees a day that time. And I would sleep anywhere. I would sleep under a tree or in a temple or in a mosque. I would sometimes read, sometimes not read. But then that was the time when I would introspect, I would assess my direction in life, criticize myself, and continue further. When I came back to school, in SEP, I would be a slightly changed person. So this was, I was just telling the team Croyer this morning, that after graduating from SEP, I had this dilemma as to what to do. And my father had kept some money aside, because my brother had just come back from the States after finishing his MS, Masters in Structures. And he said that I should go abroad and do my Masters at Harvard or MIT. And our school had some kind of an exchange program with Harvard that time too. So he said, this is the money, you go there and you make your money through assistantship or scholarship or whatever. And I said, let me think about it. And I thought about it. And I came back to him and told him that I don't want to go abroad. I do not want to go to Harvard or Princeton, but I would like to take the money. I would like to, you can give me the money. So he said, what do you want the money? What are you going to do with it? I said, I have tried to think about as to how I would like to carry on this profession of architecture. And to me, the best way to do it would be as close to nature as possible. So with that money, I bought a small piece of land at the edge of the mountains, the Sahyadri Mountains. I mean, this is at the lower level, but my house was somewhere up there, very, very high up, at the edge of the mountains. And I started living there. And second point that I wanted to do, second thing that I wanted to do was to live a life as simple as possible, in a very simple manner. So I used to take only about 500 rupees from the office for my full month. Out of 200, after that 250 rupees I would give my cook who worked with me. And that was enough for me. For the first 10 years of my life, I never did any savings in the bank, because I felt that wherever I would go, I would have enough to feed myself. And so this is one more thing I would like to tell you students when you think of your future way of life and profession, is that we as architects have this luxury of staying anywhere and working. So please try and make the most of it. I mean, if you want to. It's not necessary for us to sit in an office in a city all the time. Like a doctor has to sit in his office, in his clinic all the time, because the patients have to come there. Or a lawyer has to sit. But I have done a lot by work, the millions of square meters that I have constructed and designed so far have happened by living in such places by myself. Because, and nowadays it's more possible because of the technology available. Like when I took up a job in UAE and designed a hospital and college for the dental sciences in Ras Al Khaimah near Dubai. And we would send the drawings by email, they would reach there in 10 minutes, and the work was not hampered. I did not have to be there all the time. And so this is one very good thing about our profession, that we can be anywhere and work anywhere. Of course, you have to have trust in your employees who are working in your office, that they would be working and they would be doing the work that you allot them before you go. But I personally have found that this worked very well for me. And like I would meet my client, take his requirements, see the site, and I tell him that, okay, I'll give you the design in 1 month. So that 1 month I was free to do other jobs, other site visits, meeting other clients, and as well as staying in such places. That was my house. It was kind of an A-frame house, and at the bottom, this was all open at the bottom. Yeah, I think there is a slide. So I would have guests here in the night, and like the panther from the jungle, the forest. He felt very safe up there with me sleeping up there on the mezzanine. So he would come here on a wet, cold night, eat something here, and I would see him go by in the morning. So this is the way I started, because I didn't want, the architecture that I did also, I think had to be an expression. The outer space that I created had to be an expression of my inner space. And through this process, I was trying to purify my inner space in order to create a better outer space. Like, if you know, in our scriptures also, the outer space is called the Bhutakash. The Bhutakash is a measurable physical space of action. And whereas the inner space is called the Chidakash. The Chidakash is the space within our mind, which is which can be the reflection of the outer space, and the outer space can be the reflection of the inner space also. So then I asked myself, what can constitute this architecture of goodness? How can goodness be translated in the architectural language? Can our architecture be transformative? Can our architecture be a transformative agent of change? So the architecture that has evolved from this questioning tries to find a kind of vulnerable expression in the meaningful interface between the enclosed space and the open space. It seeks joy, a sense of wonder, and a special spatial beauty by befriending the simple, the mundane, and the ordinary. So I asked further, would striking a rapport of empathy with nature bring in goodness into our architecture and then into our lives? So finally, we have to connect whatever we do, architecture or medicine or whatever. We need to ask this basic question, is it improving the quality of life of the user? Is it making our life better? So I'll just show you a few slides. Actually, most of my work has nature in it, but a few slides where this was my house at the farm, and there were these huge mango trees, 5 of them, and which were located, measured, and drawn first, and the house was built in and around them. See, here is an architecture which is not shouting at you, like, look at me. It's not very conspicuous. It's almost camouflage. This was the inside space, the living room. I think the proportions are getting all disturbed. Your length and width ratio. You have to add, can you adjust the aspect, the ratio here? So if you see here, This is one of those trees which has become a part and parcel of the house, almost like a part of the family. We kind of saved these pillars from being used as firewood because they were taken away from an old temple, and they renovated the temple with concrete pillars and glazed tiles. And so I bought these pillars from the local village people. Now here you notice that basically the inside space and outside the architecture, landscape, and interior are not three different disciplines, or even urban design and planning. They're all, we have to think of them together at one time. So it's very difficult because this is my interior. This is the steps where we sit and put some chairs here. The swing is part of my interior. The landscape is coming inside the house, and the house is going out to meet the landscape, and so on. Is it possible? Have you done it? थोड़ा किया तो वो बहुत छोटा हो जा रहा है नहीं ठीक आप पूरा बड़ा कर सकते इसी proportion में ना मत फिर मत करो. This was my beach house near the seashore. Again, here we had some good existing trees. Now these two trees, the beautiful casuarina trees, were such that I created the entrance through the trees, meandering through the trees, so that every time I entered the house, I would say hi to these trees. Every time I went out, and feel them, touch them, and wish them bye-bye. These are the trees, and I used to enter the house between the trees, and this was just the right distance when you could touch them. Now this tree inside was framed in a window and almost became like a live painting. So at every time of the day, it would look different. Here we are talking about connecting to nature and for goodness. Like this was a no, cool. So this was a site for the National Center for Cell Sciences, which I did for the central government, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Environment. This was the site before. We had a beautiful hill there. This is in Pune, in the university campus. And what I felt that this entire hill and the greenery had to come inside my campus. So we did not create a compound wall there, a fence, but we created a transparent fence, grill fence, and allowed the greenery to come into the campus in this manner, in the form of an articulated open-air theatre. This is the same hill. Now, this was in Hyderabad, and these rocks were, I was really fascinated by these huge rocks. This rock, and people had already started vandalizing them, breaking these rocks and taking them away for construction. And this is a million-year-old heritage that we have of these rocks in Hyderabad. And these rocks, unfortunately, were on the edge of our property. So they were going in my setback space. But then I requested my clients, who were government people, and asked them whether we could exchange part of our land on this side, which was flat, and get this land, give that land to the farmers, and take this undulating and rough land from the farmers, and in exchange. And fortunately, the farmers agreed, and I was happy because I could get these rocks. I could get space around the rocks, so that my building became a homage to these rocks. This natural heritage. Normally our trees are about 100, 200 years old, but these rocks are more than 1,000,000 years old. So it's a great natural heritage which we need to preserve. You would notice that the rock here, which was cut and vandalized by the people, we have rounded it off here to hide its wounds. This was my workspace during that time when I first was conceptualizing the project, because the site was very difficult to work with, a lot of contours and uneven land. So my table was put here in this, near this thorny bush, and I would draw something and go out and move around the place and check whether it would work or not. And it was wonderful. Like I would kind of go and touch the rocks, feel them, like, and I almost hear those vibrations of million years. The same space, uh, the same space later on was converted into a small amphitheater. The building has a sense of kind of a range with the existing. All the stones which we used were from the site itself, and it had kind of an unfinished kind of a look. So this is my the place that I stay in today. I mean, I do have a house in the city, Kolhapur, for certain reasons, like for my associates and my office there. But I work, do most of my work here at Andur. It's only about 45 minutes drive from Kolhapur, 45 minutes to 1 hour drive. And this was the site before. It was a sloping site. We cut into the site and did the filling on this site to get some flat land to build on. And this same space became something like this. So this is the wall of my living room at Andur. And there are no doors, no windows. And quite a few times when I sit here on the chair here or on the lawn here or in the living room, I can see on these green patches, I can see wild bisons grazing. A lot of bisons are there. There are so many of them that they come and do my property and eat the mangoes from my trees nowadays. This was my upper level studio space, my studio and bed space, at the upper level with the terrace there. And with the same view frame. Basically what I'm trying to say is how we can connect to nature, either through views or either through tangible, tactile ways. This is a recent site, again near a lake, in Kolhapur district only, where we had this old white tree here and there's a fallen rock here. So, and it was a very small site. It was only about 5,000 square feet, about less than 500 square meters. So here the view was so beautiful and fascinating that I didn't want to touch it, but include it as a part of my architectural space. So the tree has come between the dining and the living, and the lake with the hills stays. And the rock has been made vertical and put here. The same building, the laterite that we've used. And there is another site in Nagpur, very hot, dry place. And I fell in love with this banyan tree. The first time I went there to see the site, the clients were a friends of my sister, so I accepted the job there. And there's a 15-acre site, and the clients wanted me to build somewhere here. They wanted me to build somewhere here, but I went there. I saw that place and looked around, and I saw this tree. And in front of this tree, on the other side, I saw this beri tree. On the other side, I somehow felt that there was some kind of a rapport between these two trees. And this tree, I felt that if this tree is included in my architectural vocabulary, that would be great for the people who live there. So this is how it happened. The house was built around the tree. All these stones which you see here are got from the site only. I mean, not a single stone is imported from outside, just like the Hyderabad project. And this tree and the beri tree here is linked by a lap pool. We'll see in some other slide later. But this tree is kind of the focus for the whole house. So from anywhere in the house, or from the living room, or from the bedroom, the tree is visible. Can you all see the slides? Because it's very small. It's okay? This is the house where it kind of blends with the soil and organically grows out of the soil, and that's the banyan tree center. Like this was a computational mathematics lab in Pune where they did research and work on the language of computers. That means algorithms and all that, So it was a very sophisticated kind of work that they wanted to do. So when the director called me to his place and he showed me a drawing, he said, I want something like this, something here like this. And he had that typical IT building in mind, a box made of glass and ACB panels and all that, a very high-tech kind of a building. But I asked him, I didn't say much, I said, let's go and see the site. And on the site I saw these beautiful trees here, and then at the back there was a beautiful banyan tree which became the axis for my building. And then I asked him, why would your scientists like to sit and work under a tree? He was taken aback for some time, but then he thought about it and said, why not? He said, I will give them very high-end laptops and they could sit and work. Then what I did was we created this outdoor workspace with these bamboos and the creepers, so that it shades the place, and so the scientists can come out of the air-conditioned working area and sit out and work also. This is a kind of a geomorphic building where this ground rises up to the first floor, and that gives the insulation to the building. And this is how they sit and work in that semi-open workspace. In this complex, where this was a residential school campus, there were so many trees that we had to, the built form had to be very organic and very free-flowing in order to accommodate all those trees. And this tree, I called it Mr. Ficus, it's the ficus tree, which became the center of the learning living cluster for the children, these primary school kids. And when I visited this site after about 4 or 5 years, and I was talking to the teachers, how is it like, how do you like it here? We like it very much, the children are very happy, they are more creative and this and that and all that. And then she told me one very interesting thing. She said that she had given these kids, these 3rd or 4th standard kids, an essay to write on my best friend. And she said that most of the kids, or more than 50% of the kids, wrote an essay on this tree as their best friend. So this is what architecture can do, unconsciously, unconsciously, I mean, I had not thought of that when I designed it, but I only felt that this tree could be there to connect the students with nature. But now these kids, when they grow up, they would hesitate to cut a tree because of the rapport that they have established with this tree during their formative years. Normally our idea of a hospital is very dull and dark and dingy and smelly, which I wanted to change because I wanted the hospital to appear healthy and to give an ambience of health through the greenery, through natural light and ventilation. It's a large hospital, almost 50,000 square meters. This hospital is falling short now, so we designed and constructed another block of about 35 to 40,000 square meters. So the total area of this hospital is about 9 lakh square feet. And there's no artificial light here. If you see right now also, there's no artificial light running. There's total full natural light and natural ventilation through these interconnected courtyards. And this kind of gives the patients also a sense of orientation when they move around in a large building like this. And many of the patients come from villages. This was another city hospital that we did, Kolhapur. It's a TV where the site was very tight. And we had a basement with a lot of parking and things like that below. So these are all potted plants rather than they are not in the soil proper, and these domes give the light to the. But even here, even in summer, when we enter this space, you don't need any air conditioning because of the wonderful flow of wind. This was a craniofacial hospital which dealt with this part of the body only. Where again, nature comes to my help. That's the entrance foyer, and the patients are allowed to get up, sit down on these big seats. Here, even the operation theatre has a connectivity with nature because this was the first floor. We created a terrace garden and made this big window, which is doubly glazed. So there is no chance of infection coming in from outside. But the ambience is changed completely. The doctors are pretty happy. And the patient is also very happy if he is conscious when it's taken in. Otherwise, he might be, sometimes he's anesthetized, but sometimes he's brought in safe. This is the bathroom in my lake house. This is another project. And so this rapport was not just with trees and all that, but I've always had this kind of a great affinity to all elements of nature, like water also. Like this is a swimming pool that we made. At my farmhouse with only 2,500 rupees. So it's almost a 60 square meter pool. But with 2,500, because we got the stones that when we dug, the stones that we got were additional bonus, which were used for the foundations of the my house, and we built it in such a way that it cost us very less. And during the rains, when I was living on the mountain top, I hardly used my bathroom because there were some beautiful waterfalls in the hills, in the mountains. So I would go and sit under that. And even today, in the rains, if I go down the ghats, I stop the car and have a bath there. And these are my other companions at various places. Your present house in Kolhapur has a lot of peacocks. This was my cat, and then the bird bath. And this we have a fish pond there where my wife puts the used vessels, like let's say you cook rice, and then the cooked rice vessel is kept there so that the fish eat that rice, and clean the vessel partially for us. Need less detergent. Sorry, I shouldn't say this here. Yeah, we need less. Then, like today also at my lake house, I have this monitor lizard living in my false ceiling. Of course, it has not bothered me much, but it makes all those sounds sometimes. And it was there at my mountain house also. These bisons come to my place and eat the mangoes. In the lake, sometimes we have the sambars crossing, and this was the panther from the mountain, the first house. This lizard was a great friend of mine. I mean, he would come, and whenever I used to sit out for my breakfast in the morning, he would come from somewhere and just stay next to me, and till I finished my food. This unfortunately caused some problems because this wild boar killed my dog. They got into a fight recently, just 3 years back, and was killed. And these are the Malabar pied hornbills at my pumpkin house. Very, very beautiful birds, and there's a lot of racket they make. And so I used to also make that racket with them, talk to them. Like they do that, that kind of stuff, and they would, like that was the way we kind of communicated. Life is so rich, so beautiful. Why do we want to, contain it in a small dark space. This was the paradise flycatcher, very beautiful bird with a long tail, and this caused some problem, and this changed my life to some extent because this is a Russell's viper, and at my farm in Konkan, at the farmhouse, I was in Kolhapur, and my daughter, about 4 years old daughter, was there with my wife. And my wife normally used to wear shoes when she went around. I didn't. And that day she didn't. She was in slippers. And she, unfortunately, because the grass had grown a little, she stepped on this viper and she got bit. She was bit. This was in 84, way back in 84. And that time I didn't have any savings in the bank. And it was a big expense and a big torture. And basically, then she had to be brought to Kolhapur, and then she had to be taken to a place where there was dialysis. Still, her health didn't improve, so she had to be flown to Mumbai, British Candy Hospital. That was the time when Amitabh was in his suite up there for his myasthenia gravis. So, and that is from that time onwards, I thought that one must have some saving, some money in life to use. Otherwise, that time I had to beg, borrow from people, which I returned later. But then it was a tough time. And because of these savings now, actually these savings are good because if you use them in the right way, it gives you a greater freedom. If you have some savings with you, it gives you a freedom to say no to your clients. It gives you the freedom to use that money for the right causes, for the poor of the temple. This was a beautiful experience at my beach house. Next, my house was just here, kind of, and in the night sometimes we used to have this phenomena called phosphorescence. This phosphorescence, whenever the wave broke, it would shine, the radium-like shine, light. And when I used to see that, I would strip and go into the sea, for a bath, swim. Because when I would swim, my whole body would light up like a divine body. It's a fantastic experience. I mean, if you see something like this, just go and, if you can swim, you just go and feel that. These are like, I think, small organisms which emit light. So whenever I used to come out of that water, I would have these light points sticking on my body also. And then from the kitchen also, my wife and we could watch the dolphins in the sea around what time? In November, December. So that was one thing about can we go towards goodness in life, through nature. Then wouldn't an architecture that brings us closer to other people also bring about this goodness in our life? This was the second question that I asked, and started experimenting with it in my work also. Like this is the sit-out space at the edge of the lake, where you have my morning tea, and this is some friends here. This was the house in Nagpur with the banyan tree, and so we had created a stream which flowed from the other side of the house through the living room and dining room and outside into another fish pond. So people are enjoying that, and we create spaces which would encourage people to interact with each other, which would encourage people to open up and connect to other people. This was that school with the Vickers Street. Here, the flooring was done in such a way that it had the chessboard pattern and snakes and ladder pattern inlaid in the floor itself. So the kids just had to go and get the pieces and put them together and start playing. That same space under the tree became a space for music classes. This is one of my early projects where I did this housing for the postgraduate center in Sandur in Karnataka. Very beautiful granite we got. And here too, this was a housing for the faculty, lecturers. So here too, instead of approaching each house independently, we created a connecting passage, a corridor here, complete. So when a person comes from this side to go to his house here, when a person comes from this side to go there, they meet on the way, and there are chance meetings possible with these kind of enclosures in the passage. Taking advantage of the slopes, the ground floor gets this. The ground floor gets the front garden, and the rear floor got the rear garden. But they had contact with the soil. This was the connecting passage. And the houses were on this side. They were slightly raised so that when a person walks from here, the privacy of the house is not lost. This is the atrium or the central atrium of that large hospital, where we created a lot of spaces for these patients to sort of relax and interact with each other. Like this, same space. This is a hospital, Ayurveda hospital and college that we designed in Hassan, where we had the big statue, a stone statue of Dhanvantari in the entrance foyer. And we had not thought of this, but then now the patients and the patients' relatives started coming here every evening for their bhajans and, their mental solace. This is the Institute of Management Development in Mysore, with the Chamundi Hill at the back. And here, the main entrance is from here. But this plaza, the arrival plaza, opens onto the administration, the academic area, and the auditorium area. So people coming from all sides, they tend to congregate here and meet each other. In the same campus, we also created because of the natural slope of the ground, we created an amphitheater, a green amphitheater. We created this walkway with the seats on the side, so people passing by can stop here, talk to this girl, go ahead. We made holes in these granite beams to stretch wires, and on those wires we grew creepers. So the whole pathway was protected from the sun, partly from the rain. So this amphitheater was used for informal seating like this. It was also used for group kind of activities like this. And now you would see here, the creepers have grown on those pergola, on those beams and the wires. So this has become kind of a nice shaded passage to go across. Or there could be jam sessions and musical concerts when people could gather around here, and also from the terrace to watch. This was in an engineering college campus where there were different departments on either side of this place, and so the students from both the departments would come out here, and we created the canteen here with the open air space here, seating, so that the students from both sides can come meet each other and interact when there was no activity, no function happening here. This is that same space in the Hyderabad project, which has become quite lively with the people using it. Now, this was a building that we did for the drug de-addiction center. And when I talked to the doctors there and the clients, they said that a drug addict should never be kept isolated. He should if he's interacting with people, if he sees people around, there are greater chances of him getting cured and healed. So this whole space, even the entrance gate is designed like this. It is a grill gate so that it doesn't have a closed feeling. And actually, the drug addicts here are kept inside this building for 5 weeks. So, in this, I had to strike the right balance between control and freedom. Like, though there was a control, sense of control, but at the same time, there was a feeling of freedom also. So this we because of again the site had this sloping control, we created this. This was created to again as a healing therapy. This amphitheater is therapeutic. There are people who stand in these terraces and watch, and then there are activities happening here which help in the healing process of the addict. They have their chai sessions here, some musical programs. Then even in different campuses, we tend to create spaces which are very spontaneously used by people to sit and interact with each other. Now, another way we're thinking of connecting with people is like these were the toilets in a very remote school in Kolhapur district, where you can see the state of the toilets, how it is. And so these guys approached us and they wanted to do some good toilets because there were no toilets for the girls, ladies. So I asked the girls what do. They said they go to their house and then come back. And even the teachers, the female teachers had no toilets. So recently we designed and built these toilets for them. And they're very happy. They're very active. Even though it's a girls' toilet, the boys are helping in cleaning it. The place. And these are all waste tiles which are procured from these tile yard because these people who sell tiles, they have a yard at the back with tiles with broken edges or tiles which they don't want. So we collected those tiles and used them there. Whereas this is another place which was lying very derelict. People would use this for antisocial activities. This water tank and the space under the water tank. It was all rough and neglected, totally neglected. This whole space. So I thought because there's a slum nearby also, which needed some kind of open space where they could gather and play around. So we designed and built this park for them. So it has become very active. It's very nice to watch these people, these spaces being used. The kids here, for the elderly people, and even under the water tank, they even have some drama practices, dance practices, as well as somebody comes and works on the computers, uses this space for that. This again, we're talking about connecting people. Then I also asked, can unified holistic architectural spaces create that ambience and goodness of bonding with the surrounds, as well as with one's own self? The spaces which are unified, interconnected. This was an international design competition where about 1100 entries from all over the world took part. And this is normally held once in 2 years by the Japan Design Foundation in Osaka. And fortunately, we happened to win one of the prizes that year. So this was, I called it the spiritual happening, where the entire spatial experience that one undergoes when one moves inside and then one moves outside this place brings about that sense of calm and peace and spiritual comfort in the human being. And that was their design problem. The design problem was a space for to bring about spiritual comfort or mental peace. This is a project we did for the Krishnamurti Foundation near Hyderabad. This was their study center. I'll not go into the details. This was my first project. I was about 24 years old when somebody approached us to design their Catholic church. in Kolhapur. I didn't want the church to be overbearing and dominating and authoritarian. I wanted that church to represent, symbolize the man's journey from his lower level of existence to a higher level of existence, which is symbolized by the cross here. Inside, when you went, there was a glass, there was a cross of glass blocks and light falling on this textured wall, brick wall. This was the belfry which connected uh, the community with their different styles. The recent project which we are doing in Pune, near Pune, on the lakeside, where we're creating a art and cultural hub for the city. Same place. Or some spaces within your house or in the in the campus or in the buildings that you design, which give, which create space for an individual also to be, where one would like to be with oneself. Or this is in a hospital, a meditation hall in a hospital, which we designed so that the patients or the relatives could come and sit here and to get rid of some of their tensions and stress. Then another thing I thought which would connect us to this goodness in life was if we can live a life that is more sustainable. And I found out that looking around, I found that sustainability has become such an overused, misused bad word that we seem to feel that sustainable and green features can be added on to a design, just like any tapestry or upholstery. True green sustainable design happens as a result of a unified, holistic and compassionate attitude to life. This is very important. Attitudes of simplicity, empathy, and caring concern for Mother Earth and for the present and future of all species, living and non-living. That is the crux of what sustainability should be. So I asked myself, can my work help in shifting our emphasis from the measurable celebrity to the immeasurable sanctity, from glossy wrappings to inner content, from vulgar overconsumption to beautiful restraint, beautiful simplicity, from divisive thoughts to unifying visions, and basically from an anthropocentric approach to life. An anthropocentric approach to life is where the human being, the man, is considered as the center of the universe, and everything in the universe is for his exploitation. So that is the anthropocentric life approach. So can we shift our approach from this anthropocentric approach to where everything is supposed to be for the consumption of man, to a more integral, universe-centric approach? So wouldn't a caring, compassionate, and simple sustainable design evoke and spread a sense of well-being and goodness in the environment? Was my question. Like, this is my beach house, and this is how I sit and work. Even today, I don't draw with computers, but I use the computers for other things, presentation and all that. But this is still with me, and most of the designs which you saw till now have happened like this. We're talking about simplicity. Like this whole house, this entire house, my lake house, has cost me what a designer sofa would cost somebody today. It's so cheap. The furniture here, if you see, the sofas, this is my living room. It is very simple, made out of laterite stone with these thin carpets on top. So when I'm sitting here and facing this side, I am in the living room. And when I'm hungry, I can just turn around, put my feet here, and I'm in the dining room, and have something like this, where that same space is in a beach house, can act as a living room. We put the cushions nearer to the table, and that became our dining table, our dining room. And in the night, if we had some guests like you, we would remove the bolsters, remove the table, put it here, join these cushions like this, and this became the bedroom. So the same space can be used in multiple ways, uh, in simple multiple ways. And this is the crux of sustainability that we talk. Or use of materials, as we told you earlier, this was the Hyderabad project. The entire stone used in the building, the entire stone for the roads and for the compound wall was obtained from the site itself. No stone was brought from outside. Even in here for the Gandhi farmhouse in Nagpur, the natural stones which were available here were used to construct the building. This was the kind of a meditation space or a puja space which we created in the landscape with the stone dome. Or sometimes, like guys ask me, "Oh, you get such beautiful sites, so it's easier for you to work and all that." But then sometimes we do get sites. This is a very hot, dry place in on Solapur Hyderabad Road, where they wanted me to design a school. It was a dull, flat land before, with strong hot, dusty winds, which where the tiles would blow away, the dust would come inside the class, the rainwater would run off, and the sun was scorching hot. And the trees would, very poor growth of trees was found here. So, as a solution to this, what I did was, on the site, to make it more interesting as well as more functional, was we excavated this land about 2 meters, excavated this land. This was the original site level. We removed the soil, the entire campus is sunk like this area. And the soil that we got from here was dumped on the sides as mounds. And then, because the soil was loose and all that, new trees would grow more easily and better. This mound and the trees acted as a filter or as a screen for the hot, dusty wind, and they also brought in shade. And the shaded courtyards and the buildings also shaded each other. And because we went down, we could have a greater rainwater percolation and collection of rainwater from the clouds. This is the campus now, which is it's in the construction stage now. This is our rough model, and even here this is sunk, and the soil from this sunk portion has been used to create these mounds, and the roofs of the classrooms and the labs, they become piers, and so they also get almost a free amphitheater, a big open air gathering space with the stage here. Now this was for our house in Kolhapur. I was living in an ancestral house which is very big, with big energy, ecological footprint, and very energy intensive. And decided to shift from there to the outskirts of the city because of the pollution, because of the noise, and all that. And also to create a new house that was more compact, more simple, and more environment friendly. So that's why since last 4.5 years we are living in this house, which is built from all waste bricks, all old tiles, which we collected from broken, demolished houses, old windows like this, which is used here like this, and also old taut steel pieces, bars. The pieces are used to make the gate and the compound wall. So no new steel has been smelted for me. No new tree have been cut for me. No soil no energy has been wasted in making these tiles for me. Even the slabs are pillar slabs with waste bamboos and waste PVC pipes rather than those terracotta bowls because they are more expensive than the concrete. And so here we got this torch steel also. The steel for the building, the slabs, was purchased from this scrapyard. The steel for the roofs, for the structure for the roof, was also purchased from the scrapyard. It was not for the cost. Cost was a little less, but it was more for the satisfaction that we have not exploited the earth for us. It was already there, and we are using it. We also got some from the village, the lake house village. This door frame which was there, we got that and we installed it for the main entrance. Wood pieces from here or from this old building. So we got our flooring made from that, and even these wooden strips. And so the tiles from these tile yards, broken tiles and pieces, things which are discarded completely. This is the Vita Gold, natural stone like Jaisalmer, which we used it in any shape that it came in, like small, big, and all that, and this became our flooring. The vitrified tiles or the ceramic tiles were cut in different shapes to make this kind of a pattern. And we got this house now. This is our present house in just on the outskirts of the city where the peacocks come and the birds. There was a drop of almost 5 meters. We filled up 1 meter, so there's a drop of about 4 meters in 15 meters width. The width is only 15 meters, and there is a drop of about 4 meters. So we collected all the water from the roofs in this gutter, and through this pipe and through a sand filter, it goes to a large rainwater harvesting tank in the bottom. So we made use of the slopes, the contours, to create a basement of rainwater harvesting tank and a servant spot. We also have a servant spot there at the lower level. This is the new terracing that we did with the stone that we found there. That's the flooring of the house, done in waste piece of Vita Gold. And this is the ceiling of the house, done from the packaging wood of a linear accelerator machine that came to one of my cancer hospital sites. So this is also waste. Actually, when I went and asked them what about the packaging wood that has come, so they had dumped it somewhere and they were going to discard it. So I said, "Can I have that?" They said, "Okay, but why do you want it?" I said, "I can use it in some way or the other." So they also said, "Okay, don't take all, keep some for us." So then they also got into that. This is the bathroom. Again, made from, there are 7 or 8 different kinds of tiles used in the same bathroom. Because whatever I got, because beggars are not choosers. I used to go and beg, put up. And this happened, this bathroom happened. And the house is not just a house, but it is also my kitchen garden. Because these wooden strips that we have put all around the house, they shade the house, then also birds come and sit on them. And they act as supports for the GI wires. And now these GI wires support my vegetable creepers. So I get my vegetables from the walls also. This is a very beautiful example of a win-win situation, which those who have read the book Architecture Without Architects would know about. Like this is both these buildings are for the same purpose. These are fertilizer manufacturing factory. Like this factory creates so much smoke, and that the birds up in the sky are coughing, and they also, this fertilizer which they make deteriorates the soil, the quality of the soil. Whereas here, what they have done in Sudan is they have built these mud towers, hollow towers, and inside these hollow towers, they have these wooden pegs all along inside. And the birds from the entire region, mainly pigeons and birds, they enter these towers through these holes because it is air conditioned inside. It's a very cool inside. So the birds dark and cool. So in the desert, the birds come and sit on the pegs. And so when the birds sit on the pegs, they also shit. So when they shit, a lot of bird shit is collected at the base in heaps. And the farmer opens the rear door, removes the shit, and uses it for his manure as a fertilizer. Here the birds are happy, the soil is happy, the farmers are happy. So, sustainability is this, whether we can create something which creates a symbiotic relationship between the components and also where everyone tends to be happy. So we're talking about simplicity and values in life. So this is a beautiful slide which I would like to read out. Do not educate your child to be rich. Educate her to be happy. So when she grows up, she will know the value of things and not the price. That is very important. And as I was telling the Croyer team Croyer this morning, they wanted me to advise them something. I said, please do not confuse a good life with the number of goods you have. They're two totally different things. And today, many people feel that a good life is to have a Mercedes, to have a BMW, or to have so much jewelry, or so many things like that. Goods, more and more goods, so many gadgets. So that, according to some, becomes a good life. But let's not confuse a good life with this number of goods. So, the paradox of today's life is that despite man's attachment and mania for technical gadgets, technological gadgets, and ensuring mechanical comfort, his true relaxation lies in their absence. That is why, to avoid the physical and mental deterioration, he escaped to natural primitive surroundings. The modern devices and gadgets cannot replace real peace and happiness, just as a child's toys cannot be substituted for human affection. My architecture seeks joy, a sense of wonder, and a special spatial beauty by befriending the simple, the mundane, and the ordinary. My works are not designed to create iconic, grand, exhibitionist sculptural forms that attract the eye, but to create more humane, socially relevant, more natural, and sustainable spaces that nurture the human spirit. This was a lap pool between the banyan tree and the Veda tree, the new connection. So when we experience ourselves as this fascinating universal energy, we drown in its intrinsic goodness. And then sound becomes music, colors become a painting, words become poetry. Movement becomes dance, the formless becomes a form. Mind becomes meditation, and life becomes a celebration. So let's celebrate life through our work. Thank you. Thank you for your
Now, I would like to know a few things. One is that, okay, because most of our buildings are that you shown, Kolhapur and the surrounding area. Yeah. So, hello. Yeah. something about the climate of Kolhapur, like kind of spaces that should blend with the climate of that area. Because suddenly I see and I can see Ahmedabad, I will find it difficult to do it here. Okay, with that temperature, 40-45 degrees. So some kind of a climatic consideration how we have built into this. Otherwise, I'd like to know, like, obviously you never went to study further to America. No. So we did it here. But do you have any inspiration, like, when you do this, every student of architecture or when practicing, you get inspired by a few people and you take it forward or you reinterpret them. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
I have no mind. Yes. Yes, I always say, like when I show this, some of these slides abroad, I always tell them that some of these things, like the open veranda space and the lake view and all that, the full openness and we have our climate, which is not so harsh as the Western climate. They need to have a glass or windows to protect them from the cold. It's very extremely cold, and here it's extremely hot. So fortunately, it does work for our climate in Kolhapur and Pune and surrounding areas. And yes, though I didn't go abroad to study, but later on I did go to speak also and interact with architects. I didn't go to study at Princeton or Harvard, but I was invited by the American Institute of Architecture way back in '93 at Princeton also. And as you say, inspiration is there at every corner. I've learned from so many. And one of my major source of inspiration is the vernacular architecture, the way people build and the way people solve their problems, like the architecture without architects. That has been my major source. And secondly, there are a number of contemporary architects whose work I admire and who have been a source of inspiration for me. I mean, if I name some, then some may be missed out. But there are many in India and abroad. Yes. And even students, you are also my source of inspiration sometimes. Like whenever I go to conduct design workshops or take a class, I always tell my students that I've come here as a co-learner, not just as a teacher who will tell you what to do, but I'm also learning in the process. There's a lot of discussion going on at the back. So would you like to do that here? They seem to be discussing a number of things, but they're not. Yes. Mike.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful presentation, very inspirational for all of us. What I want to know from you is the way you're talking about goodness, and it is reflected in the work that you do when it comes to building basically a built form. My question is regarding, nowadays we are talking about smart cities, and there are a lot of other things we are talking at a city level, or how we see our country in future. What is your idea of goodness when we take it into the scale? We talk about the city, or when you take it to a larger level.
I think it would more or less be the same for me. I mean, even at a larger scale. I mean, having a city that is more in the cycle, I mean, more harmoniously adjusted in the natural cycle, which is very close to nature, where you have a lot of greens and breathing spaces and lungs in the cities. cities, plazas, and spaces which are more democratic, accessible, vulnerable, open spaces rather than exclusive, closed-in spaces. You know, where people can connect to each other very easily, which we talked about. So this, at the city scale also, it would be the same. At least for me, there would be some more aspects like transportation and movement patterns and all that. Some new things would be added up, definitely. But actually, this is something not rocket science. I mean, this is, you just have to ask your conscience, what is really good? Is this really good? And no, because nowadays the commercial everything is based on the returns, commercial returns. So whether that is right or good in the long run for for mankind, for us, that we have to ask ourselves, even as a planner or urban designer. And sorry, go ahead.
I would also like to ask if you have to, which you feel the lab function very similar to the houses that you build and the environment that you create. Because when you build the houses or at this scale, at architecture level, you are the driver. Every decision that you make. But when it comes to a larger scale, maybe there are a number of other entities which are involved. So,
Yeah, I have experienced these kind of even good community settlements in the, which have been done in a vernacular way also. Like when I lived on an island in Greece, it's a fascinating place to live in. Connection with nature, with the sea, with the people, the way the streets wind, and the way the in between the streets widen and meeting places created, and even the overall aesthetic of the place is so harmonious. It's like that. There are many other places or villages which I've seen, towns which I've seen, towns also, and then some cities have some pockets which are well designed from this point of view, which does bring about that goodness in the people. Some modern cities also. Modern cities. There are, I think we can do. No, because you must have heard of the case of Pruitt Igoi. Pruitt Igoi was an example of modern American architecture, which almost kind of an award-winning architecture. I think it was done by INFA, surprisingly. It was done like the Marseille block in St. Louis. And when it was built and when people started living there, they found that that whole space, the kind of spaces that were there, were making them very depressed, very violent, and very antisocial. So they complained. The inhabitants complained and made a case to the court. And the Supreme Court of America ruled that this building should be dynamite. A huge building, a residential block. So space does have some impact on us always, knowingly or unknowingly. Actually, the next film that I'm actually at the back of this book, in the sleeve, there is a film that I had made long back. It's called The Unfolding Wide, the 12-minute film, and it won an international jury award in Europe at a film festival in Europe. But you can see that also. And now the latest film that I'm making, I am in the process of making, writing the script now, is on space. It's a very abstract topic because space itself is abstract. So it will be about 40 minutes film. And once it is ready, I will send a copy to you, for your library.
Yeah. Sir, sometimes we see that very simple, logical, and obvious things. appear very complex to us, and very complex, uh, unwanted things we do very simply, very easily. So my question is that with your attitude and your way of working, how do you bring other people about your vision?
Sorry, how do you?
How do you bring other people whom you
This,
work with, whom you deal with, find some logic in your method?
there are some people who get convinced or are convinced about this, and basically, fortunately, it has so happened that I have been choosing my clients rather than the clients choosing me. So, because if I get about 5 or 6 jobs, I take one or two or three. No, because I don't need that much money. My needs are not many, and I don't want to dilute the intensity of my involvement, which does get diluted sometimes. But I don't want to dilute the intensity of my involvement in the project if I take too many projects. So fortunately, these few clients uh, seem to, at least seem to, vibe with the way I think. So it works out many times. One should make some surveys and studies later on as to how it is going on. But as you say, we actually things are really simple in life. Life can be very simple and uncomplicated and beautiful. Correct. We tend to, even in terms of our relationships, even in terms of our everything, and everything today. One of the reasons why it is happening more today is because we are commodifying everything. Everything gets commodified. Even our relationships are commodified. इससे क्या मिलेगा मुझे? मैं ये करेगा तो क्या मिलेगा? You know, ये होगा तो क्या होगा? Good. Students, those who want to go, finish your question fast. Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, there's just a small comment which I would like to make.
Yeah, it may not be a question. You can add on. Yeah.
Yeah, uh, I think there now I have.